I don't know, I just sort of fall in love with Halifax, and obviously I get to work in the best building in the world, the Peace Hall, and it's just got so much going for it. We've got great neighbours, great friends. I've just had a wonderful life since I've moved up here. I mean, Yorkshire's kind of given me everything and more. Always be open to learning, always be open to adapt your style. Be true to yourself, but if there's something you're doing that's not effective, then it isn't effective, and doing more of it isn't going to change it. I've been in jobs that I've really not enjoyed, and I've woken up and thought, I don't want to go there today, and that's not a great feeling. I would only ever do a job where I really want to go to work and really enjoy it, because if you're getting joy from what you're doing, you'll succeed.
Hi Nicky.
Hi.
Welcome to the Expert Lounge. Delighted to have you here today. And as you know, we're going to have a chat about you, your career, the Peace Hall, and find out a little bit more.
Great.
I noticed when we started talking this afternoon that you're not from West Yorkshire.
No.
Like me, you haven't got the northern accent. So you were born in London?
I was born in London, but interestingly, my family were from Bradford.
Right, okay.
And I grew up in London, but my husband is from Halifax, so that's a connection. We came up here 19 years ago.
Okay, I was going to ask that. So what brought you back to Halifax?
Marriage.
Yeah.
And really, my mother-in-law became quite poorly, and so we came up to look after her, and then we ended up staying.
Okay, so I mean, I'm relatively new to Halifax and to this region. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think the landscape, the heritage, the people are fantastic. What is it that really draws you to, apart from family, what is it that connects you with this place?
It's all of those things, really. I just think it's such a beautiful county, Yorkshire, and I don't know, I just sort of fall in love with Halifax, and obviously I get to work in the best building in the world, the Peace Hall, and it's just got so much going for it. We've got great neighbours, great friends. I've just had a wonderful life since I've moved up here. I mean, Yorkshire's kind of given me everything and more. A husband, a great job, and just a really big network of wonderful people. And I knew the moment that I'd kind of made the transition. It was about 3 years in, actually, and I was coming back from London on the Grand Central, and I thought, oh, thank goodness I'm going home, and I was going the right way up to Yorkshire, not back down to London. And I thought, gosh, I really have now moved, in my mind and in my heart, I'd actually moved to Yorkshire. So yeah, I just love living here. I wouldn't have been here this long otherwise. So
and I think London's great for a weekend, but the pace of that place is just incredible, isn't it?
It's so fast. I mean, it's a great place to be young in, and because the nightlife's alive all the time, and there's always something to do, and it's a really exciting city. But I found myself actually, when I first moved up here, going into coffee shops, and turning the coffee out was a lot slower, because in London everything's like that. It's really fast, and just having a word with myself, it's like, why do I need a coffee in a second? It's like, I don't need to do that. And when I go back to London, you're right, I'm fine for a night or two, and then I feel exhausted. It's quite an assault on the senses. You've got all this architecture, lots of people, a lot of sounds, sirens and all of that, and I do actually look forward to coming back and having the quiet.
Yeah. So Chief Executive of the Peace Hall.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big role. And I think the profile of the Peace Hall has sort of grown massively, hasn't it, in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the Peace Hall and your involvement in that transformation. But I guess what I'm really interested in to start with is your journey into that role. So obviously you're leading a creative venue. You're programming, or there's a team of people programming events into that space. What was your pathway into that career?
Oh gosh, haphazard, I think, really. When I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. I'm obsessed with space. I'm just fascinated by it. Then I wanted to be a vet. And I was always a very creative person. I was good at art and music, but also really good at science. So I wasn't quite sure where that was going to take me. And then I ended up being at the London School of Fashion, St Martin's School of Art, and dossing around there really for a few years, thinking, what am I going to do with this marketing and fashion and design degree that I'm going to come out with here? And ended up getting a job in an advertising agency. I got an internship there and just loved advertising. Just found building brands, developing brands, coming up with strategies and taglines and creative treatments for them. I just loved it. And it was in London. It's very exciting because it was kind of right in the middle of the fashion and the music scene. So there were great parties. I met some really, really clever people that helped me think about how you build a brand and how you think about customers and consumers. So I sort of found my sweet spot really, because it appealed to everything that I loved. And I was able to work on Tesco, an amazing client, helping them become the #1 grocery retailer in the UK.
Every Little Helps?
Every Little Helps.
Was that yours?
That was Low House Spink. That was the agency that I worked for. I can't take credit for that. That was the creative director at the time. But Tesco as a brand at the time had been highly devalued. It was a pilot hire, sell it cheap. It was a bit of a naff supermarket, really. And they wanted to overtake Sainsbury's. And it was just fascinating to learn from the best about how you change views and hearts and minds on a brand and on a product, and to then see it become that. And I was involved with the first club card rollout, Project Apple as we called it, launching a Tesco Metro in Covent Garden, Tesco Expresses, and just seeing how a supermarket can be more than just a grocery store. It was absolutely incredible. I then went to work on British Telecom, who had this, I'm showing my age now, had this whippersnapper called Mercury phones coming along. And
my first mobile phone was a
weren't
Mercury.
They great?
Mercury 1-to-1.
Great phones. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Don't tell British Telecom that. I thought Mercury were quite cool. But they'd been used to having the market to themselves, and suddenly the market was opened up to competition. And again, learning how to protect a heritage brand was really interesting. Like, how do you preserve all those great things that people trust about a brand that makes them stay with it rather than being tempted to go elsewhere? So, as I say, I was very fortunate. I worked on some of the best brands, British brands you can think of, and learnt from the best. I was then asked actually to go into government policy and help them land very difficult but important messages with the population, whether it was around health, whether it was around transport. And essentially, how do we ensure that we roll out messages and that we actually get a change, a transformation here of either thinking or how people live their lives? And that's really how I got into regeneration. It was after a couple of years of working on sexual health and chlamydia, and which was at the time was a real big problem for young people that they weren't aware of. I was then put into the transport department, and initially I thought, oh goodness me, this is going to be a bit dry. But it was fascinating because I learned that transport just unlocks so much potential and growth, and became a bit of a train nerd and a bit of a transport nerd, and worked on some great projects where we really changed people's lives by getting them done quickly. And then regeneration followed from that. So I got to work on some amazing regeneration projects, not just in the UK, but across the world. At that time, I was working for a large American consultancy. And they just opened up the world to me, So I got to see how you delivered really big infrastructure projects, how you work with some of the best stakeholders. I mean, they had NASA on their books and really, really fascinating space programs. So you can imagine my eyes lit up when I saw who they represented. So this whole new world opened up to me, and I just learned so much. And that's kind of what brought me to the Peace Hall, because I met my husband in Brighton. He was living in Brighton at the time. And he worked with me on a research project for government. And we moved up here. I was still working for the American company. And then my husband said, I need to take you to this building that's close to our family. Saw it, thought it was magnificent, but very run down. And I just felt aghast that this beautiful building it just needed some TLC and needed bringing to life again.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say you felt sort of distressed at the fact that he was going to move you in there.
Yeah, he could. That was a possibility, although he could say I live in there now, to be fair. And that's,
so
that's kind of what brought
we're
me
talking
here.
about the Peace Hall,
already.
not the family home.
No. But no, so I mean, and I just fell in love with it. And when I learned that the council were going to be transforming the building, I was a bit nervous because I thought they're not going to want that there Londoner telling us what to do on a transformation project. But to my complete delight, they were really open about my experience of having worked on regeneration projects. So although I didn't deliver the transformation, I did become a trustee of a newly formed Peace Hall Trust, and then became chief exec in 2017.
Okay, so what year did you join the trust?
2015, thereabouts, as a trustee.
And so at that point, I mean, I haven't seen pictures of the building as it was at that time. What sort of cost was involved in bringing the building to the standard that it is now?
I think it was the council with what was then the Heritage Lottery Fund, and it was around 19 million.
Wow.
Which sounds like a lot, but actually for something that's 66,000 square foot of courtyard and huge building, like a mini St Marco's, I call it, that's not a lot. And what they've managed to achieve with that, I think, is quite phenomenal.
Is there anything else in the UK in terms of a venue like that, or is it completely unique?
Probably Somerset House in London is the closest we've got to it, but that wasn't a Peace Hall. That was actually somebody's home for a while, I think, Lord Somerset. But they're very grand houses, the Georgians, goodness me. But it was designed and in the style of many of the beautiful Italian and Greek architecture that the Georgians love so much. So my favourite era of architecture is Georgian. They knew how to build, and they knew about the use of light. Really clever. And the Peace Hall's got all of that. Yeah. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit there about sort of your marketing role, and your degree at St Martin's. What did you do? I'm thinking about some of our students or people that might listen to this podcast. What was your route into your degree? Did you go through a traditional A-level route? Did you go through a vocational route? What led you there?
It was really more an A-level route. So I left school and I did my A-levels at college. And then I was actually due to go travelling. And my dear friend at the time, she's still a friend of mine today, let me down very badly because she spent all of her travelling money. And in those days, you had to apply to university through ACAS, so we'd missed that window. So I thought, well, heck, what am I going to do now? So I actually went to, it's called the London School of Trades or something like that. I'll look it up for you. It's changed since I've left it. But they were an amalgam of St Martin's School of Art, the College for the Distributive Trades, and I went along actually to do a fashion buying certificate because there was a really cool part of it where you went to Paris. But they said I was overqualified, and they put me on this very, very hard degree course where I was, to my horror, was at lessons all the time when friends are doing other courses where they seem to have a lot of time off. It was really hard working. And after we completed it, our year had done it, they didn't do it anymore because I think they realised they were going to kill students at that point because there was just absolutely no downtime. But it was amazing because I learnt marketing, I learnt design, I learnt business finance, I learnt HR. It was incredible. It was all encompassing. So essentially you would leave and you'd be able to go into any sphere of business as a graduate. So that was really my route in.
You sort of left your A-levels contemplating art and fashion, but sort of got opened up to a world of commercial world, really, of marketing and
absolutely
and that sort of thing.
I knew I wanted to do something creative, but mum and dad, so for my A-levels I did art, English, maths and accountancy, because they said you need to have some proper qualifications, as they called it, behind you. You know, we're not going to have these lofty art things going on here, young lady. And it was quite funny actually, because my mum said this job now I've got it was sort of dreamed up for me, because it encapsulates all of those things of having the business acumen as well as the artistic license to create things which are brilliant. And I found that the only other place I found that was in advertising, where although you were coming up with great concepts, you did have to convert to sales, you did have to convert to results. So like right from a young age, I had to learn the cutting edge of business whilst doing artistic things. So I think my advice for any student, it does sound a bit motherhood, apple pie, is follow what gives you joy. I've been in jobs that I've really not enjoyed, and you know, I've woken up and thought, I don't want to go there today, and that's not a great feeling. I would only ever do a job where I really want to go to work and really enjoy it, because if you're getting joy from what you're doing, you'll succeed. If you're not getting joy from what you're doing, it's going to be very difficult to succeed, because you won't know where you're going or where it's taking you. So I didn't really have a plan. I just didn't have a plan, and that worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone. If you want to go into certain professions, you need a plan for sure. But if you are happy to be an entrepreneur or in the creative field, you know, that's the whole point of it, is you're there to create. So don't limit your options.
And it's interesting, isn't it? You sort of work for some big brands, like you said, so Tesco being one of them. And then you've transferred the skills that you've used to sort of market those big brands to, you know, you talked about sort of social action campaigns.
Yeah.
So how do those two align? What did you take from the commercial world and apply to, you know, the sort of social work that you were doing through your marketing of, you know, government campaigns?
I think it's all about people and what are we trying to say and what we like them to do. And I don't know if I had a residual guilt from flogging people things they probably didn't need, and then I had a bit this sort of social conscience that I wanted to do something that actually helped people. Because a lot of what was happening at government level was a lot of really important things that people didn't really understand or didn't know about. And that was on my mind. It's like, how do we make sure that whatever we say appeals to them? You know, you can't just transmit to people, you've got to engage them and help them understand why it's for them. So you've got to kind of seek to understand to be understood. So I'm very keen on understanding who I'm trying to influence. So I talk to them or engage with them and say, are you aware of this? How do you feel about that? So that messages and the type of activities that we do resonated with them, rather than appearing to be a lecture or patronising in any way. So understand your audience in whatever you do. And that's how I've approached the Peace Hall. You know, our members are very passionate about the building. They want to support the building. So it's really important that we respond to what they want. So every year we do a call out of who would you like to see at the Peace Hall. And 9 times out of 10, I can secure some of those names for them. I don't have to do that, but I want to do that because it gives the customers joy that someone they've asked for, like Richard Ashcroft, was probably one of the most asked for artists. And we've got him, you know. So that's what I do it for. It's for the customer. And I felt the same way when we were working on government projects. It's these things are really important for people. So it's really important they understand it, learn about it, and can hopefully change what they're doing, because they may not have been aware that there was a danger or a problem. And that's something that I've carried through my other commitments. You know, I do feel very passionate about women and having a chance to get into leadership. I feel very passionate about those that are from deprived upbringings being given a chance to have an opportunity to do something different. And I think that I always promised myself, if I ever got into a position of power or influence, I would use that to help other people, not just kind of drag the ladder up and say, I'm all right, Jack. You know, I think it's really important that that power and that platform is shared and given to others.
What advice then, picking up on what you just said about, you know, being a woman in a leadership role, what advice would you give to people starting out on their career path? You know, what advice could you give?
Stay true to yourself. Like, don't feel pressure to change. I grew up in very interesting times where there's a kind of patriarchal leadership, and the guy knows best, or women felt they had to become quite alpha, to beat the guys, and I never wanted to be like that. I felt very uncomfortable with that style for men as well as women. I find it quite intimidating. And I think for women, you can have a softer power, which is around collaboration, around engagement, around conversation, which is actually, I've seen, has been far more effective than trying to browbeat people into agreeing with you. Yeah. I learned how not to do it, and I learned how to do it. And I've had some great female role models and some dreadful ones, and I've had some great male leaders. Mm-hmm. So my other advice would be is learn from others. If you like how someone is and their style and how they make people feel, that what do they say? People never remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. If you're around leaders like that, you're probably in a good organisation. If they make you feel good, you're in a good place.
So you had some leaders that have inspired you, I guess.
Really, a lot.
Who's your biggest inspiration?
There was probably a guy called Mark Cave, who worked in Low Howard Spink, the advertising agency. He was one of the best leaders I've ever seen. He would get you around the bonfire, as he called it, and you all bought into the vision and you all bought into what you were doing, and it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun, and it was just amazing. He made you feel that you could do anything. He did have to rein us in from time to time, but he was an amazing inspirational leader. And I've also learned a lot from my current chairman, Sir Roger Marsh. He has a very disciplined approach to how you get things done, and he has a really nice way of cajoling people and engaging people. He's very well respected because he's very considered, and I've learned from him too. He's very kind, he's very thoughtful. And some great female leaders were probably some of my American bosses, female leaders. They were very positive, very strong, and they taught me to actually stand my ground at times when I felt a bit overwhelmed. They used to say, stand in your power, and I didn't know what they meant by that half the time. But then I did actually learn, yes, I can trust myself. Mm-hmm. I am probably right about this. So stick to my guns. So different things from different people.
I'm quite interested in those are the skills that you developed during your career journey. So, you study for a degree, you learn and hopefully retain some of that and then get to apply it. But what are those skills that you think are sort of critical to your success and progression that perhaps you don't learn from a book?
Always be open to learning. The older I get, the less I know. I realise I know there's a whole world out there. So always be open to learning. Always be open to adapt your style. Like, different organisations have different cultures. Be true to yourself, but if there's something you're doing that's not effective, then it isn't effective, and doing more of it isn't going to change it. So have the humility really to be open to change and adapt your style and how you work with people. And I think humour is a great leveller. It helps people. We have some pinch points in Peace Hall, particularly in the run up to the gigs. Things go wrong, people make mistakes, but if you can't have humour to be able to kind of diffuse things, I think you're on a bit of a sticky wicket. So there's a lot of laughter in our office, as well as, sometimes high stress. And I do have a lot of leaders around me, Gary in particular, Gary Ray, my director of strategy, and he and I bounce off each other. And, we've had to deal with some very challenging things, but we've dealt with it with a seriousness, but also some humour. And I think that's important, because you have to remember to right-size things. And my old boss used to say, did anyone die? No, so it's not that bad. Yeah. So let's just move on. And I think those little sound bites that you get throughout your career are really important, so that you don't take yourself or anything too seriously.
That sounds like a fantastic journey through a number of roles, and it sounds like each one got bigger, more exciting. And you talked about laughter and enjoying work. which, sounds perfect. But what about when things go wrong? Because inevitably they do.
Yeah.
And have you got any sort of, setbacks that you've gone through that you've had to overcome that you can reflect on because they've still supported you to get where you are today?
Absolutely. I think it's not assuming things. That trips everybody up. They say, assumption makes an arse out of you and I. Often people make assumptions that people are going to do things and they don't, or you haven't communicated you need them to do it, And I always say to my team, when you come into any organisation, you have to set your own table manners. So in some cultures, passing from the left's offensive, passing from the right's offensive. Nothing's wrong, nothing's right. You just have to create your own table manners. And I often hear people say, oh, we did it like this here, but that worked there, does it work here? And I guess where I've tripped up is, particularly in my early days, of assuming a way of doing something was the right way. And it may have been in the previous context, but not in the one you're in. So it's being open to that and understanding that just because you've learnt something somewhere, don't think it necessarily works where you go next. Mm-hmm. I guess the biggest setback I faced was opening the Peace Hall, because I had to step into a role I wasn't expecting to do with a team I didn't hire, and very quickly get this place opened. It was like a day on The Apprentice. It's like you've got 4 months, you've got no money, you've got a team you don't really know, and nothing's been done really. So on you go. And it was quite stressful, but I'm very calm in stress. I don't know what it is, if I'm given like a natural balm or something, but I'm very, very calm, because I think I can't lose it, because if I lose it, everyone around me is going to lose it. So I do remain calm. But I think that there were periods during that, when I thought, what on earth have I taken on here? But also a frustration that perhaps not everyone was communicating. And then I realised that I probably hadn't set the expectation correctly. And then again, it's just that word humility. It's having the humility to say, okay, I've not understood them as well as I could have done. A lot of that's been to do with time. A lot of that's been to do with where I've come from before. So let's just reset this thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. And we sat down and reset it. And we were able to go forward in a different way with less tension. And also, I think that communication, understanding is key, because in stress you get conflict. There's a blame game that can happen if you're not careful. And what I try and do when we're in periods of challenge is not get into the blame game. If it starts happening, I stop it and say, we can do anything. We can do a post-mortem at the end, but let's just get through this. And then let's see if we need a post-mortem. We might not need one. We might just resolve it. And I have been guilty in the past with some of the organisations I've been in to fall into that, because you get frightened, you get scared, you think this is going to come my way. But the more mature you get with leadership, you realise that that's not effective and that's not going to work. So it's how you dial that down, and that volatility that you can receive from others down, and make sure that you're not spreading that across the team. Mm-hmm. You've got to be calm when everyone else is a bit wobbly, That can be hard to maintain sometimes when you feel like being wobbly yourself. Yeah.
So you get into post, you lead the development of the site, and it doesn't just turn into a leading live music venue overnight. So
no.
What did you do to build that? How did you, first of all, how did you attract the acts to come and perform? And then how did you build the audiences, or did one follow the other? What came first? How did you go about it?
What came first was a vision. For me, you've got this most amazing building, the last remaining Georgian cloth hall in the world, that had an ambition to be a leading visitor attraction. And if you want to get profile, and you haven't got the money to spend on huge advertising campaigns, sorry advertising industry, but not everyone's got that kind of cash, then you have to do something that gets attention. So in my mind, we were always going to get leading artists. It was how we did it and when we did it. And I actually had a very talented lady called Molly Rigg work for me. She was the head of events. She'd been at Somerset House in London. and she persuaded some promoters to put their toe in the water with us for a while. They brought us some great acts. Father John Misty, year 1, year 2, we had Elbow. Sadly, after that, we were then into lockdown. But what I saw was that whilst the local promoters were good, they just didn't have the buying power that we really needed to secure some of the bigger acts that would mean, yes, this is, a leading venue. And really what's fast forwarded this for us is the partnership that we have with Cuff and Taylor, who are part of Live Nation. And that was a bit of serendipity, actually. I'd been to Scarborough Outdoor Theatre to see the Stereophonics, and Scarborough Council were raving about their great promoters, Cuff and Taylor. Peter Taylor, who's a Taylor part of it, then went up the next night. They said, we've met this amazing woman, Nicky, you've got to go and meet her. He drove down, actually, to see me. And over lunch, we did the deal, because there was just something that we liked about each other, our values and a shared vision, because Peter had been very good at putting in big acts in beautiful venues like Greenwich and Scarborough. I think he's famous for bringing Christina Aguilera to Scarborough or something, or Kylie, both. And he shared this vision, and he understood the business we were in, and we knew we could work together, and it's been a great partnership. And I do ask the heavens of him sometimes, and he always delivers. It's been great.
Give us a few of the acts that you've had over the last couple of years post lockdown, and perhaps your personal favourite. Well,
he brought me Sting.
Mm-hmm.
He brought me Limp Bizkit. Sir Tom Jones. Duran Duran. I mean, some of those were like childhood dreams, and local.
Not Tom Jones.
Not surely. Tom Jones so much. Sorry, Tom, but there are a lot of people that love him, and he was fabulous, and he's an amazing performer, amazing artist. My favourite was actually Limp Bizkit. I was a bit scared, actually, because I'd seen Woodstock 2 and thought, what on earth are they going to do to Peace Hall? And they turned up on the day, and there was Fred Durst and the band and Wes, and they were very chilled out, and they wanted to talk to everybody. And Fred was just lovely and wanted to know about the building. And I said to him, please don't encourage anyone to do anything, because I will kill you. And he laughed. He said, I absolutely won't. And he was very good. He was very well behaved, actually. He said, you do know this is all an alter ego. We are a parody of Korn, because he wanted to be a film director. And I had clocked that. But he said what we found, Nicky, was that the music that we created as a parody people loved. So we carried on doing it because we fancied being rock stars after that, and why not, So that was an absolute scream, and the team loved it because they were rock stars, but they were really interested in the people in the building, and that really touched me, because some artists come and understandably they just want to come and do a gig and go. Others want to engage and find out more about the building they're in. Sting was one of those, Fred was one of those, and it was just lovely because you feel you're close to greatness, and then they're in your building, and I still get goosebumps when I'm walking around the Peace Hall and you've got a big act on the stage and you think, wow, we've brought them here for Halifax, and they're raving about Halifax and being here, and they're the moments we feel, am I dreaming?
And how important is it for, a town like Halifax to have such a venue and be bringing acts of this sort of scale to...
I think it's important on two levels. On an economic level, it brings in, thousands of people throughout the summer, and the bars and the town, and indeed the borough, benefit from that footfall and the visits. But the emotional thing, Holly Lynch said to me, since the Peace Hall started doing the big concerts, Halifax has this swagger, this pride about their Peace Hall, and now, of course, I've made a rod for my own back because, they're asking for Madonna and things like that. Who doesn't normally get out of bed for less than 10 million a ticket. But why not? I always think, well, why not? There'll come a time when we might be able to persuade them to add us on to their tour schedule, which Sting did.
I've got a bit of a personal plea, actually.
Okay.
So, I went to school in Wolverhampton. and I was really into creative arts at school, took part in school shows, and I actually was in the same production of Oliver with Beverly Knight.
Ah.
So I don't know if you could work your magic, Nicky, get Beverly on stage at the Peace Hall, and perhaps, you know, I might even get up there and do a little rendition of a song from Oliver.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I'm joking about that bit, but
that is entirely doable.
Bev's great in outdoor concerts, isn't she?
Yeah, that is entirely doable. And Aaron, who works for me, is my head of programming. He amazing guy, 3 Grammy award winning artist who was in Sounds of Blackness. Worked with Prince. He now is a business partner of Dr. Dre, and I met him in Leeds because he now lives in Yorkshire, in Sheffield. And
it's the place to be.
It is. Yeah. And he came to join me, you know, as my head of programming. Now, he's friends with Beverly, and that is true. Aaron just drops names like anything, but they were all his friends. And it is, you know, he says, I don't want to be that guy, but he is that guy. He's amazing. So that's entirely doable. So I'll speak to our Aaron and see what we can do.
Get her in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can get her into the college as well. She can come and talk to the students. I'm just booking out Beverly's schedule there without, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be honoured. Although we have got Eric Griggs, who's Dr. Dre's lead producer, coming to the college next year, hopefully.
We have.
So that's going to be very exciting.
I think leading on to that, actually, how important is it that organisations like ours work together?
Incredibly important. I want young people to be able to have a career in the arts and the creative and music sector industry. It's notoriously difficult to get into. Historically, it is based a lot on who you know, and I want to stop that and make it more of an even playing field. And we've got this amazing music venue right here in Halifax, in Calderdale, and we need to use that as an enabler to make that happen. So I'm really proud of the work that we're doing with the Academy, the Peace Hall Academy, the Emerging Peace Hall Academy, where we're taking 14 people through a boot camp production training, and they're going to be working with me next year at the gigs or with Live Nation somewhere on the planet, because it could be anywhere. But we want to grow that to music performance as well as behind the curtain. So we're working with the Calderdale Trust, Music Calderdale Trust, to encourage that next generation of young people and performers. And you know, that I kind of see that as my next chapter, is how do I help continue to grow that?
And I think if we can work collaboratively to
absolutely
inspire young people and make them realise that they can do anything.
Absolutely, and why not? You know, we're here for such a short time. Do what you love. And, you know, if we can do anything that creates that opportunity, if we're given the tools and the ability to do that, then we should do it. And, you know, I'm really proud of the collaboration that we've got already. You know, Eric, I mentioned, is coming here. When we said where we're going to put him, I said put him in the college, because that's who we need to inspire, is the next generation of musicians. And by the way, all of that music that's created is going to go onto iSounds, isn't it? And he's going to release the tracks as music. And this is the man that scored Dreamgirls. He's now worked with Snoop Dogg, Bruce Springsteen. He's going to come here and create music with young people in Calderdale.
It's huge.
Yeah, and why not? I always say, why not?
Absolutely. I'm really aware that, you know, post the pandemic was really tough for the arts. You know, venues had to close down. A lot of freelancers, you know, musicians, actors, technicians couldn't work during that period. And I think there's been, you know, a sort of decline in art subjects in schools and the coverage of arts subjects in schools. And that's had an impact then perhaps on the numbers of students pursuing that sort of career route post 16. What advice would you give to young people, or indeed adults, that want to get into the creative industries? Because it's not just about performance, is it? There's so many other roles. So what advice would you give?
I would say try and get a placement. Try and get if it's something you love doing, you want to learn how to do it, try and get a placement. That is the fast track route, because I have quite a few apprentices who join me who now work for me full time. Had they thought of working in a heritage building or in the arts sector? No, they didn't think it was for them. And there's a chap, Ellis, that he's our videographer, photographer, absolutely incredible photographer, and all of his shots at the gigs are now used in national press. It always gets cleared by the artist. But unless he'd come to me to work in that role, he might not have had the opportunity, even thought about that opportunity. So think about the places that you would like to work and the type of thing you'd like to be doing, and bother them. Ring them up and say, can I come and give my time for free, or can I have a bit of paid work in the summer? And if they like you and you do a good job, there's a good chance they'll keep you and they'll take you on. Because if the conventional education route is a struggle, then a lot in the creative arts industry is about what you can do on the job. That's what's valued the most. So, and then quite often we will then pay for some of our apprentices or young people that join us to continue their education. So I've got two very high qualified event twins, actually, Sophie and Chloe, who are going to come and work for me after their degrees completed, who are going to be helping me deliver events. But unless they come to work for me, I might not have known they were there, and they might have not known there was an opportunity within the Peace Hall. So I would say get a placement.
So I know that outside of your work at the Peace Hall, you've had other big roles. So I know your husband Marcus was mayor, and he appointed you mayoress, and you're also deputy lieutenant.
That's right, of West Yorkshire.
Yeah. So what does that role involve, and you know, what do you get from doing that?
So in every county, the monarch appoints a Lord Lieutenant. It's a very old role, actually. It dates back to the 1500s, I think. And their role was to kind of greet monarchs, keep order in the county, really. But really just to represent the monarchy county-wide. And just to sort of really preserve the role of the monarchy. And the Lord Lieutenant appoints various deputy lieutenants every year. And my role really is to support him or her in the role. At the moment, we've got a chap called Ed Anderson, who's lovely, the Lord Lieutenant. So he asked me to become a deputy lieutenant. And so the type of things you might do on his behalf would be British citizenships, which I love doing. Or you'll be asked to go and award somebody for the great work, or long service, so police long service awards, or community heroes who, you know, deserve recognition for what they've done, often don't want it, but should have it, really, for the work they've done. So it's a real privileged role, because your role is to really shine a light on people in the community who are going above and beyond, really. So other things I'm involved with are assessing King's Award for Voluntary Service, which is a really prestigious award. Calderdale has been rocking it the last few years. We've had quite a lot of organisations going through and getting awards. I've never known, actually, such a place where there are so many people that do something for nothing. They just want to help people. And it's been lovely to be able to help get that recognition for them. So those are types of things you do. And
talking about recognition, you've sort of been recognised yourself, haven't you, for the work that you've done and the support that you've given individuals and this community. Do you want to tell us about that?
Oh, it's very exciting, yeah. So as a complete shock, but this year I was awarded an MBE in the King's first birthdays honours list. DCMS honoured me for the work at the Peace Hall.
When do you find out? I'm quite interested.
It's quite a secret squirrel, actually, because people
do you know before it hits the press?
And you're not allowed to tell anyone, which for me was a nightmare, because you want to just go, wow, this thing's happened, you know, but you have to keep it quiet. And actually, if they get wind that you've been a bit loose with your announcements, they can take away what they freely give. So you do have to be really careful. So I got a letter it looked a very official letter, actually. It's quite worrying, so I got my husband to open it. And he said, Nick, I think you got an MBE. I was driving at the time when he read it to me, opened it in the car, and I was like, oh my God, you know. And you then have to keep quiet. They then announce it in the press, and then once it's announced in the press, you can talk about it. And then at some point, you're invited to go and pick up your gong from either Windsor Castle or Holyrood or Buckingham Palace, and get thanked by a monarch, one of the monarchs. So
That's
amazing, really.
Pretty huge achievement, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. But it's not just my achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Although they say MBEs are my bloody efforts, OBEs are others' bloody efforts, you never achieve anything on your own. You know, the MBE, for me, represents the work of the team, both past and present, who have got the Peace Hall where it is today. So when I get it, I'm having a party when I get back, so they can all put it on if they want to, and
excellent.
And have
Get
a
their
few
photo
drinks.
taken with it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I know that on top of all that work that you're doing, you also, I don't know how you find time for this, but you volunteer for a number of organisations, so Northern Broadsides.
I was a trustee of Northern Broadsides. I'm not today, but yeah, I feel, you know, again, that was an organisation going through change because Barry Rutter had left, and we appointed the magnificent Laurie Sansom, who is an absolute treasure to have in the borough. I'm still, you know, Laurie and I still chew the fat and share troubles as well as opportunities together, but it's great to have him. I mean, I'm really involved now with a homeless charity called Happy Days. It's a subject sort of close to my heart. It's a there but the grace of God thing for all of us, really, and they are really revolutionising how we deal with homelessness, which I know the monarchy are actually interested in. I think Prince William and Kate are keen on. Let's eradicate it. We shouldn't be having it in a country of this wealth and stature. So that's a great initiative, and we're opening up a community supermarket to help people through this awful cost of living crisis, which just seems to be keeping on giving. And ensuring that actually when people are put into housing, they have structure, because they really need guidance if they've been on the streets for a while of how to adapt to living in a house again. So they tend to share houses with each other for a while until they get used to living in a different way, or a way that they used to live, in fact, just so they have a fighting chance of remaining in a house and not going back on the streets again.
And that's called Happy
Days.
Happy Days.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's running now. That's
running now. Yeah, it's a great charity. They're doing great work. And then my other sort of voluntary positions really are around working with the Mayor, Tracy Brabin, with her culture committee, of ensuring that we really grow the cultural offer in West Yorkshire, and that we are continuing to shout about the great things that we're doing here. You know, we've got EMI North in Leeds now. We've got Come Play With Me that get young people signed up into music business and onto record labels.
And it's not just music, is it? We've got a thriving film and TV industry as well.
Huge, thanks to Sally. And, you know, Screen Yorkshire have done a tremendous job with that. And well, in fact, we had Marvel at the Peace Hall a year ago with Samuel Jackson in the courtyard, which was very weird but brilliant in equal measure. It's just magnificent, actually, that the whole county is kind of seen as a great place to film. It's so picturesque, so unique, and
I guess some of the work ahead is about linking up some of those creative organisations. You know, we've got a fantastic theatre, the Victoria Theatre, but we've also got smaller venues, haven't we? So I went to watch my first production at the Viaduct Theatre, which is within Dean Clough.
That's right, yeah.
And what an incredible venue that is. It's got this sort of incredible charm. I mean, there's water dripping on you at certain points, and it's damp, and there's a sort of aroma in the air. But to watch a performance in Traverse in that environment was incredible.
Yeah, we are blessed actually with a lot of assets in Calder Square Chapel, of course, as well.
Yeah.
And And we were called the Cultural Quarter at one point, you know, and Shoreditch of the North, which I got into trouble for, but I didn't actually say. A journalist said that for the record. Because I'm a Londoner, I got hit over the head with it. But, you know, we were, pre-pandemic, we were already starting to punch above our weight. And post-pandemic, I see that head of steam building up again. And obviously, we're going into our year of culture next year. So that's going to be a very exciting time for the borough, where I think a lot of these assets can really come together and start to galvanise to work with each other in a powerful way.
I mean, we're super excited by the money we've just received through the Local Skills Improvement Fund, and we're going to be putting in some new facilities at Dean Clough to provide training in games design, TV and film and esports. So, you know, to be able to connect all of that creativity up in whatever way we can is hugely exciting.
Yeah, because creating is so many different things, isn't it? And it's a whole new world out there. I think anything we can do together to create the environment where people can create is what we should be doing.
You have got an incredibly busy life from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
In a role like yours, how do you get that balance between work and private life?
I've always been very driven. So I've got a husband who understands that, I think. So as I've got older, I'm learning to be better at it. When I was younger, I was hopeless at it. I just loved what I did. So it wasn't like work to me. It was work and play all rolled into one. But now I really do look forward to those moments where I can just be with my dogs and Marcus on a walk or by the sea. And I do try and carve that time out where I can, because it's important, because you do need to be able to get perspective and not just living what you're doing for your job. But to be honest with you, the job at the Peace Hall is just so amazing. It's quite difficult to stay away from it at times because there's always something different going on. But yeah, you have to work hard. You're so
invested in it. And
yeah, absolutely. It's important.
I was going to ask you, what dogs have you got then? 2
rescue lurchers, one of whom is a greyhound Saluki Maddie, and the other is Pip, who is a bonkers deerhound greyhound. But I love them very dearly, and they sulk a lot because I need to work harder at that work-life balance.
Although they like a run, but it's sort of
short. They like a short blast, and then they sleep a lot, which suits me completely.
So, you know, we've talked about your career in marketing, the way you moved through that career and navigated that industry. Won awards, I believe, for some of your marketing work. Then ended up at the Peace Hall, and you know, you've led much of that transformation of the venue. What next?
I've no idea.
What next
whatever life
for
brings
you,
me,
Nicky?
whatever life brings me. I think I've always found that something's always been presented to me at the right time, and then it's a decision as to whether or not it's something I want to do or not. But there will come a point where the Peace Hall needs different leadership. It needs a different view, and you know, I understand that will come at some point in the future. But for now, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. Let's see what the future brings.
So you've mentioned apprenticeships, and I know that we've worked with the Peace Hall in the past. What's your view on apprenticeships? What do you think young people can get from getting on an apprenticeship, and what's the benefits for a business?
For us as a business, it's been hugely beneficial. I mean, 3 of now my full-time staff were apprentices. One is in HR, one is in hospitality, the other is film and editing. And the benefits are that you can pass on your experience to people, and actually they're learning on the job experience of what it's like to be in a real life work environment, you know. And if they're not young people who particularly are academic, I want to go through the whole academic spectrum, it gives them an opportunity to try before they buy, if you like, the career that they want to go into, and is it right for them? And if it is right for them, then they can pursue their academic career beyond that, should they want to, or ultimately they've got a job, you know, where they can build their academic qualifications on top of that, a bit like we're doing with Chelsea in HR. She's now going through a CIPD and you know, having successfully joined us full time after being an apprentice. So they've worked tremendously well for us, and I think that we have to have many different gateways into organisations. If you limit it to one gateway, are you always going to get the best talent? Are you always going to get the best people? Probably not. So keep your options open and bring people in many different ways and try different ways of employing people.
And of course, earn while you learn.
Absolutely. Earn while you learn.
What's better than that?
And they've stayed, so we must be doing something right. Yeah. They've obviously enjoyed it.
We've talked a lot about young people and, you know, that their pathways into the creative industries. What about people who, you know, have always wanted to work in the sector but perhaps think they've missed their chance, or it's a bit too late?
Oh, it's never too late. It's never too late. We've had people enter the Peace Hall who've been parents who were single parents and struggled to do a job they really wanted to do, and their kids have grown up and they're now working for us doing the job that they wanted to do. So it's never too late. It's how big is your dream and how committed are you to fulfilling it. So I would say never give up. See, you'll be on the stage with Beverly Knight. I know where this is going. So. This is a leading question. We're back to Beverly Knight again, but I'd say never give up.
And I think we see a lot of that here at the college. You know, we work with, you know, thousands of adults, and we've got a large number going through our access to HE courses. So people that are coming back and trying to sort of get onto a degree level study program, and you know, that's really rewarding because that group are coming back because it's something that they really want to do, and quite often they really make the most of that opportunity and that chance that they're getting.
My sister's done that, you know. She was a pop star and decided she didn't want to be in the music business, so she wanted to teach kids with disabilities music, profound disabilities music, and so she's been studying forever, it would seem. But I'm immensely proud of her because she's got a master's and a degree in psychotherapy and music, and I think my sister said to me what she lacked when she was younger was that maturity and discipline to study. Like, she really enjoyed what she was doing at the time. And as you get older, she's really enjoyed the opportunity to learn and to succeed, you know, get a qualification and graduate. You know, she recently graduated from her master's, so I don't think it's ever too late. No. My sister would probably endorse that, and I'd say sometimes when you want to do something, it isn't the right time, and as you get older, maybe that there's a space in your life where it is the right time, and why not do it? I'm
going to ask you a question now. It's something that we ask every guest at the end of the podcast.
You look nervous asking me that.
I want you to imagine that you can go back in time.
Yeah.
And that you are going to go back in time and send 16-year-old Nicky a text. And it's sending a text to yourself, giving yourself advice about what lies ahead. What would you say?
I would say to myself that you are good enough. Don't sweat the small stuff. And go for what you want to do.
Brilliant. Nicky, it has been delightful talking to you.
Thank you, I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you.